What if the most consequential financial shock the U.S. economy experienced this year wasn't a bank collapse, not a soaring inflation report, but a government shutdown that refused to end, quietly rewriting the rules of money itself? A standoff in Washington lasting 43 days, longer than any such closure in American history, not just furloughing hundreds of thousands, but rippling deep into the very fabric of the U.S. financial system. This is not the story the headlines fed you. This is the shadow impact, the hidden debt, quiet market distortions, and economic paradoxes no one fully anticipated. Today, we're peeling back the surface and revealing the unexpected aftermath of the 2025 U.S. government shutdown, and what it tells us about the fragile mythology of money. Set the stage. How we got here. To understand the aftermath, we must first rewind. A government shutdown is triggered when Congress fails to approve funding for federal operations, a technical lapse masquerading as political turf war. Encyclopedia Britannica. Most shutdowns are temporary, a few days here or there, but the 2025 shutdown from October 1st to November 12th broke records. It closed national museums, halted non-essential agencies, and sent nearly 900,000 federal workers home without pay, while millions more worked unpaid. Behind the scenes, it exposed a deeper vulnerability in the American financial architecture. Here is the twist. The shutdown didn't just pause government services, it interfered with the normal rhythm of money, debt, and data. And that interference created consequences most people never saw coming. Origins. More than politics, a system inconvenience. This 2025 shutdown didn't erupt in a vacuum. It was the culmination of years of fiscal dysfunction, repeated brinkmanship over budgets, debt ceilings, and partisan gridlock. The U.S. runs on a continuous revenue and spending cycle. Taxes flow in daily. Bills go out and markets assume certainty. When that certainty vanishes, a bizarre pause enters the economic bloodstream. Ironically, some mandatory payments, Social Security, Medicare continued, untouched. But many discretionary operations, including statistical releases, government contracting, and data reporting halted. That created a black hole of information at exactly the moment markets needed clarity. Bipartisan Policy Center, this wasn't merely political theater. It was a crack in the foundation of American financial signaling, the expectations investors and institutions rely on to price money and risk. Rise. The shutdown unfolds a different kind of crisis as day turned into week, and week into over 6 weeks. The shutdown's secondary effects began to unfold. 1. Economic growth became harder to read. Crucial government economic reports from employment data to GDP figures were delayed. Without them, markets made decisions in a fog. Traders saw shadows where there should have been hard numbers. GW&K investment management too. Consumer spending slowed. Analysts estimate tens of billions in lost consumer spending as federal workers tightened their belts and private contractors froze expenditures. Future UAE 3. GDP slipped. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that the shutdown reduced GDP growth by as much as $18 billion in the fourth quarter alone. But here's the silent paradox. GDP isn't just economic output, it's a measure of confidence, and confidence falters. Investors demand higher yields to hold us debt, meaning the cost of money increases even if the shutdown is temporary. Breaking point. Unexpected market strains. Here's where the story gets darker. The economic data missing, markets began to misprice risk. Investors had less visibility into inflation, employment, and federal spending trends. That forced yields higher because uncertainty, not solvency, became the price of American debt. In other words, money priced in fear, not fundamentals. At the same time, Treasury debt kept climbing. During the shutdown period alone, nearly $382 billion in new national debt was recorded, pushing the U.S. past $38 trillion. Remember this paradox? U.S. government simultaneously couldn't agree to fund itself and continued borrowing like nothing was wrong. This contradiction, political paralysis with fiscal expansion, is a pattern repeating from decade to decade. Fallout, beyond the headlines, when the shutdown finally ended. The damage wasn't simply counted in lost paychecks or furloughed workers. It was threaded through financial markets, federal debt trajectories, and future expectations. Erosion of data integrity, missing or delayed data, made it harder for economic policymakers, including the Federal Reserve, to respond intelligently. Uncertainty breeds risk premiums. That means higher borrowing costs for everyone? Local governments felt the shock losses in federal funding caused swirling budget shortfalls in cities and towns that count on timely transfers from food assistance to infrastructure grants. Al Jazeera. Psychological impact on money. Money isn't just numbers, it's confidence in continuity. The shutdown signaled that even the most basic assumptions about the U.S. financial machine can break. And it did so at a time when corporate bankruptcies are rising to levels unseen in over a decade, squeezing credit flows and tightening financial conditions for businesses and households alike. The Washington Post failed fixes. Return to normal wasn't normal. After the shutdown, lawmakers celebrated a deal and markets calmed. But the deeper issues remain. The solution, passing a spending bill just moments before crisis, didn't fix the underlying political fault lines. It only postponed the next crisis. Meanwhile, the national debt continues to expand. The fundamental friction between political gridlock and fiscal necessity hasn't been resolved. This cycle brinkmanship, followed by temporary fixes, is now baked into how money functions in the U.S. system. Modern parallels and repeating patterns. What happened in 2025 isn't unique. It's an acceleration of a pattern. Repeated shutdowns as political tools, rising national debt with no structural deficit, fix markets, punishing uncertainty more than actual solvency. The golden paradox of modern finance is this: we demand safe debt from a government that can't guarantee stability. That paradox is what keeps yields volatile, confidence fragile, and money's value always slightly suspect. This is the shadow impact, not what's visible on Wall Street tickers, but what's buried under them. 3 clear takeaways. 1. Money depends on continuity, not just numbers. When basic operations pause, even temporarily, the confidence that underpins money wobbles. 2. Political dysfunction is financial risk. Shocks like the shutdown aren't isolated political events, they change the cost and pricing of U.S. debt worldwide. 3. Debt and money are psychological contracts. Debt only works if everyone believes the system will keep running. When belief falters, money itself becomes unstable. Closing warning. We often measure economic health by GDP, stock indexes, or unemployment metrics. But the real heartbeat of a financial system is trust. In 2025, that heartbeat skipped. And when trust falters, the consequences don't show up in press releases. They show up in the silent pricing of money across the globe. If you want to dive deeper into how government debt, central banking, and hidden financial systems shape your world, make sure you hit subscribe. Smash that like button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an eye-opening breakdown like this. Because the more you understand the shadow mechanics of money, the less power they have to control you.